viewers, hello VOD watchers. Welcome to my stream. Tonight, I'm continuing reading Dracula by Bram Stoker. My lovely hacked Kindle, which I have put my custom images on. There was a way for me to do book covers as the screensaver, but I haven't looked into that. Alright, so last week what were we doing? Van Helsing was talking to Mina Harker. What was her maiden name again? Murray, that's it. Who formerly was Mina Murray. So, what were they doing? That's right, Van Helsing went back to Holland very quickly. Or was it Amsterdam? And he was going to go get some things. He hasn't yet revealed what's going on. I mean, we have a fair idea what's going on as the audience, but Van Helsing is playing this very close to his chest. All the other characters are like, what do you mean? This is just the beginning. Like, because Lucy, poor Lucy Westenra, died. And seemingly of massive blood loss. But before she died, she was having a bit of a split personality going on. And this was causing Van Helsing some concern, and he obviously knows what's going on. So yes. And as always, this book is in diary and letter and telegram and newspaper article format. So the book is a collection of fictional entries. Oh my goodness, I've just done something to my throat just now, and it's like... That's okay. This is a warm-up. It's fine. Okay. So... Let's continue on. So this is a letter written by hand from Professor Van Helsing to Mrs. Harker, Mina. 25th of September at 6 o'clock. So this was about a week after Lucy had passed. Dear Madam Mina, I have read your husband's so wonderful diary. You may sleep without doubt. Strange and terrible as it is true. I will pledge my life on it. It may be worse for others, but for him and you there is no dread. He is a noble fellow, and let me tell you from experience of men that one who would do as he did in going down that... I think it's supposed to be hall. Going down that hall into that room, I... and going a second time is not one to be injured in permanence by a shock. His brain and his heart are all right. This I swear, before I have even seen him. So be at rest. I shall have much to ask him of other things. I am blessed that today I come to see you, for I have learned all at once so much that again I am dazzled more than ever, and I must think. Yours, the most faithful, Abraham Van Helsing. Letter, Mrs. Harker to Van Helsing. So this is Mina writing back to him. 25th of September, 6:30 p.m. So that evening. The postal service must have been incredible in those days. My dear Dr. Van Helsing, 1,000 thanks for your kind letter, which has taken a great weight off my mind. And yet, if it be true, what terrible things there are in the world, and what an awful thing if that man, that monster, be really in London. I fear to think. I have this moment, whilst writing, had a wire from Jonathan, saying that he leaves by 6:25 tonight from Launceston, and will be here at 10:18, so that I shall have no fear tonight. Will you, therefore, instead of lunching with us, please come to breakfast at 8 o'clock, if this be not too early for you? You can get away if you are in a hurry by the 10:30 train, which will bring you to Paddington by 2:35. Do not answer this, as I shall take it that, if I do not hear, you will come to breakfast. Believe me, your faithful and grateful friend, Mina Harker. Jonathan Harker's Journal, 26th of September, the next day. I thought never to write in this diary again, but the time has come. When I got home last night, Mina had supper ready, and when we had supped, she told me of Van Helsing's visit, and of her having given him the 2 diaries copied out, and of how anxious she has been about me. She showed me in the doctor's letter that all I wrote down was true. It seems to have made a new man of me. It was the doubt as to the reality of the whole thing that knocked me over. I felt impotent and in the dark and distrustful. But now that I know, I'm not afraid, even of the Count. He has succeeded after all, then, in his design in getting to London, and it was he I saw. He has got younger, and how? Van Helsing is the man to unmask him and hunt him out, if he is anything like what Mina says. We sat late and talked it over. Mina is dressing, and I shall call at the hotel in a few minutes and bring him over. He was, I think, surprised to see me. When I came into the room where he was and introduced myself, he took me by the shoulder and turned my face round to the light and said, after a sharp scrutiny, "But Madam Mina told me you were ill, that you had had a shock." It was so funny to hear my wife called Madam Mina by this kindly, strong-faced old man. I smiled and said, "I was ill. I have had a shock, but you have cured me already." "And how?" "By your letter to Mina last night." I was in doubt and then everything took a hue of unreality, and I did not know what to trust, even the evidence of my own senses. Not knowing what to trust, I did not know what to do, and so had only to keep on working in what had hitherto been the groove of my life. Hitherto, meaning up until then. Hitherto. The groove ceased to avail me, and I mistrusted myself. Doctor, you don't know what it is to doubt everything, even yourself. No, you don't. You couldn't with eyebrows like yours. With eyebrows like yours, how could you mistrust yourself with eyebrows like that? The eyebrows? That's so random. There must be some impressive eyebrows. He seemed pleased and laughed as he said, "So, you are a physiognomist. I learn more here with each hour. I am with so much pleasure coming to you to breakfast, and, oh, sir, you will pardon praise from an old man, but you are blessed in your wife." I would listen to him going on praising Mina for a day, so I simply nodded and stood silent. "She is one of God's women, fashioned by his own hand to show us men and other women that there is a heaven where we can enter, and that its light can be here on earth. So true, so sweet, so noble, so little an egoist, and that, let me tell you, is much in this age, so sceptical and selfish. And you, sir, I have read all the letters to poor Miss Lucy, and some of them speak of you, so I know you, since some days from knowing the others, but I have seen your true self since last night. You will give me your hand, will you not? And let us be friends for all our lives." We shook hands, and he was so earnest and so kind that it made me quite choky. "And now," he said, "may I ask you for some more help? I have a great task to do, and at the beginning it is to know. You can help me here. Can you tell me what went before your going to Transylvania? Later on I may ask more help, and of a different kind, but at first this will do." "Look here, sir," I said, "does what you have to do concern the Count?" "It does," he said solemnly. "Then I'm with you heart and soul. As you go by the 10:30 train, you will not have time to read them, but I shall get the bundle of papers. You can take them with you and read them in the train." After breakfast, I saw him to the station. When we were parting, he said, "Perhaps you will come to town if I send for you, and take Madam Mina too?" "We shall both come when you will," I said. I had got him the morning papers and the London papers of the previous night, and while we were talking at the carriage window, waiting for the train to start, he was turning them over. His eyes suddenly seemed to catch something in one of them, the Westminster Gazette. I knew it by the colour, and he grew quite white. He read something intently, groaning to himself, Mein Gott, so soon, so soon. I do not think he remembered me at that moment. Just then, the whistle blew, and the train moved off. This recalled him to himself, and he leaned out of the window and waved his hand, calling out, Love to Madam Mina. I shall write so soon as ever I can. What did he see in the paper? In which paper was it? There's been a few entries so far. Thank you for pets, Teamoid. So we're up to Dr. Seward's diary. 26th of September, so the same day. What was Dr. Seward's voice? Dr. Seward was more of a learned doctor. I'm doing alright, Teamoid. I've had a bit of a rough sleeping pattern so far this week. See how we go. Might just see if I can get an early night, maybe. After stream, obviously. I hope you're doing okay. So yes, Dr. Seward's diary, 26th of September, the same day. Truly there is no such thing as finality. Not a week since I said finis, and yet here I am, starting fresh again, or rather going on with the record. That's right. He ended his diary after Lucy passed away. Now he's starting a new one. Until this afternoon I had no cause to think of what is done. Renfield had become, to all intents, as sane as he ever was. If you recall, Dr. Seward is the lead doctor in a mental institution, and Renfield is one of his patients. And if you remember, the mental institution borders onto a strange old estate called Carfax, which happens to be the one Count Dracula has bought. Renfield had become, to all intents, as sane as he ever was. He was already well ahead with his fly business, and he had just started in the spider line also, so he had not been of any trouble to me. I had a letter from Arthur, written on Sunday, and from it I gathered that he is bearing up wonderfully well. Quincy Morris is with him, and that is of much help, for he himself is a bubbling well of good spirits. Quincy wrote me a line too, and from him I hear that Arthur is beginning to recover something of his old buoyancy. So as to them, all my mind is at rest. As for myself, I was settling down to my work with the enthusiasm which I used to have for it, so that I might fairly have said that the wound which poor Lucy left on me was becoming cicatrized. I don't know what cicatrized means. Probably healed, I don't know. Everything is, however, now reopened, and what is to be the end God only knows. I have an idea that Van Helsing thinks he knows too, but he will only let out enough at a time to whet curiosity. He went to Exeter yesterday, and stayed there all night. Today he came back, and almost bounded into the room at about 5:30, and thrust last night's Westminster Gazette into my hand. Cicatrized of a wound or defect in the tissue. To close will be closed by a scar formation. Ah, thank you, Timoid. I had a dictionary command, but it has broken. Oh, salty or tomato, please. It's because you're using non-alphabetic characters. Suffering the crazy sleep patterns. Yeah. It sucks. Well, I've got to get some sleep because I need to do some grocery shopping tomorrow. Ah yes, today he came back and almost bounded into the room at about 5:30 and thrust last night's Westminster Gazette into my hand. "What do you think of that?" he asked, as he stood back and folded his arms. I looked over the paper, for I really did not know what he meant, and he took it from me and pointed out a paragraph about children being decoyed away at Hampstead. It did not convey much to me until I reached a passage where it described small puncture wounds on their throats. An idea struck me and I looked up. "Well," he said, "it is like poor Lucy's. And what do you make of it?" "Simply that there is some cause in common. Whatever it was that injured her has injured them." I did not quite understand his answer. "That is true indirectly, but not directly." "How do you mean, Professor?" I asked. "Hello, Zero. Good to see you." That's okay. "How do you mean, Professor?" I asked. I was a little inclined to take his seriousness lightly, for, after all, 4 days of rest and freedom from burning, harrowing anxiety does help to restore one's spirits. But when I saw his face, it sobered me. Never, even in the midst of our despair about poor Lucy, had he looked more stern. "Tell me," I said. "I can hazard no opinion. I do not know what to think, and I have no data on which to found a conjecture." "Do you mean to tell me, friend John, that you have no suspicion as to what poor Lucy died of? Not after all the hints given, not only by events, but by me?" "Of nervous prostration following a great loss or waste of blood." "And how was the blood lost or wasted?" I shook my head. He stepped over and sat down beside me, and went on. "You are a clever man, friend John. You reason well, and your wit is bold, but you are too prejudiced. You do not let your eyes see, nor your ears hear, and that which is outside your daily life is not of account to you. Do you not think there are things which you cannot understand, yet which are? That some people see things that others cannot? But there are things old and new which must not be contemplated by men's eyes, because they know or think they know some things which other men have told them. It is the fault of our science that wants it to explain all, and if it explain not, then it says there is nothing to explain. But yet we see around us every day the growth of new beliefs, which think themselves new, and which yet and which are yet but old, which pretend to be young, like the fine ladies at the opera. I suppose now you do not believe in corporeal transference. Here we go. No, nor in materialization, no, nor in astral bodies, no, nor in the reading of thought, no, nor in hypnotism. Yes, I said. Charcot has proved that pretty well. 1897, by the way, chap. He smiled and went on. Then you are satisfied as to it, yes? And of course then you understand how it act, and can follow the mind of the great Charcot, alas, that he is no more, into the very soul of the patient that he influence, no? Then, friend John, am I to take it that you simply accept fact, and are satisfied to let from premise to conclusion be a blank? No? Then tell me, for I am a student of the brain, how you accept hypnotism and reject the thought reading. Let me tell you, my friend, that there are things done today in electrical science which would have been deemed unholy by the very men who discovered electricity, who would themselves not so long before been burned as wizards. There are always mysteries in life. Why was it that Methuselah lived 900 years, and old Pa 169, and yet that poor Lucy, with 4 men's blood in her poor veins, could not live even one day? For had she lived one more day, we could save her. Do you know all the mystery of life and death? Do you know the altogether of comparative anatomy, and can say wherefore the qualities of brutes are in some men and not in others? I'm just waiting for the racism to appear. Can you tell me why, when other spiders die small and soon, that one spider lived for centuries in the tower of the old Spanish church, and grew, till, on descending, he could drink the oil of all the church lamps? Can you tell me why in Pampas and elsewhere there are bats that come out at night and open the veins of cattle and horses and suck dry their veins? How in some islands of the western seas there are bats which hang on the trees all day, and those who have seen describe as like giant nuts or pods, and that when the sailors sleep on the deck, because that it is hot, flit down on them, and then in the morning are found dead men, white as even Miss Lucy was. Good God, Professor, I said, starting up. Do you mean to tell me that Lucy was bitten by such a bat, and that such a thing is here in London in the 19th century? He waved his hand for silence and went on. Can you tell me why the tortoise lives more long than generations of men? Why the elephant goes on and on till he have seized dynasties? And why the parrot never die only of bite of cat or dog, or other complaint? Can you tell me why men believe in all ages and places that there are men and women who cannot die? We all know, because science has vouched for the fact that there have been toads shut up in rocks for thousands of years, shut in one so small hole that only hold him since the youth of the world. Can you tell me how the Indian fakir can make himself to die and have been buried, and his grave sealed, and corn sowed on it, and the corn reaped and be cut and sown, and reaped and cut again, and then men come and take away the unbroken seal, and that there lie the Indian fakir, not dead, but that rise up and walk amongst them as before? Here I interrupted him. I was getting bewildered. He so crowded on my mind his list of nature's eccentricities and possible impossibilities that my imagination was getting fired. I had a dim idea that he was teaching me some lesson, as long ago he used to do this in his study at Amsterdam. It was Amsterdam. But he used them to tell me one thing, so that I could have the object of thought in my mind all the time. But now I was without his help, yet I wanted to follow him, so I said, "Professor, let me be your pet student again. Tell me the thesis, so that I may apply your knowledge as you go on. At present, I am going in my mind from point to point, as a madman, and not a sane one follows an idea. I feel like a novice lumbering through a bog in a mist, jumping from one tussock to another, in the mere blind effort to move on without knowing where I am going." "That is a good image," he said. "Well, I shall tell you. My thesis is this. I want you to believe." "To believe what?" "To believe in things that you cannot. Let me illustrate. I heard once of an American who so defined faith, that faculty which enables us to believe things which we know to be untrue. For one, I follow that man. He meant that we shall have an open mind, and not let a little bit of truth check the rush of the big truth, like a small rock does a railway truck. We shall get the small truth first. Good. We keep him, and we value him, but all the same we must not let him think himself all the truth in the universe. Then you want me not to let some previous conviction inure the receptivity of my mind with regard to some strange matter. Do I read your lesson all right?" "Ah, you are my favorite pupil still. It is worth to teach you. Now that you are willing to understand, you have taken the first step to understand. You think then that those so small holes in the children's throats were made by the same that made the holes in Miss Lucy?" "In Miss Lucy?" "I suppose so." He stood up and said solemnly, "Then you are wrong. Oh, would it were so! But alas, no, it is worse, far, far worse." "In God's name, Professor Van Helsing, what do you mean?" I cried. He threw himself with a despairing gesture into a chair, and placed his elbows on the table, covering his face with his hands as he spoke. "They were made by Miss Lucy." Dun, dun, dun. End of chapter 14. Hello, Jeffrey. How you doing? At last, Van Helsing reveals something. we had a pretty good idea it was Lucy that was doing that Lucy was in fact still alive and was taking the blood of children. Just listening to me before bed. Oh, wonderful. So, we are officially halfway through the book. That was a pretty good reveal. Hope I've been okay. I've been struggling with a strange sleep pattern recently. Luckily, there aren't any vampires around here. But yes, Australia's too hot for vampires. So, chapter 15. Dr. Seward's diary continued. For a while, sheer anger mastered me. It was as if he had during her life struck Lucy on the face. I smote the table hard, and rose up as I said to him, "Dr. Van Helsing, are you mad?" Smote the table. Take that, table. He raised his head and looked at me, and somehow the tenderness of his face calmed me at once. "Would I were," he said. "Madness were easy to bear compared with truth like this. Oh, my friend, why, think you, did I go so far around? Why take so long to tell so simple a thing? Was it because I hate you, and have hated you all my life? Was it because I wished to give you pain? Was it that I wanted, now so late, revenge for that time when you saved my life, and from a fearful death? Ah, no." "Forgive me," said I. He went on. "My friend, it was because I wished to be gentle in the breaking to you, for I know that you have loved that so sweet lady. But even yet, I do not expect you to believe. It is so hard to accept at once any abstract truth, that we may doubt such to be possible, when we have always believed the no of it. It is more hard still to accept so sad a concrete truth, and of such a one as Miss Lucy. Tonight I go to prove it. Dare you come with me?" This staggered me. A man does not like to prove such a truth. Byron accepted from the category, jealously. And prove the very truth he most abhorred. He saw my hesitation and spoke. "The logic is simple. No madman's logic this time, jumping from tussock to tussock in a misty bog. If it not be true, then proof will be relief. At worst, it will not harm. But if it be true, there is the dread. Yet every dread should help my cause, for in it is some need of belief. Come, I tell you what I propose. First, that we go off now and see that child in the hospital. Dr. Vincent of the North Hospital, where the papers say the child is a friend of mine, and I think of yours since you were in class at Amsterdam. He will let 2 scientists see his case. If he will not let 2 friends, we shall tell him nothing, but only that we wish to learn. And then? He took a key from his pocket and held it up. And then we spend the night, you and I, in the churchyard where Lucy lies. This is the key that lock the tomb. I had it from the coffin man to give to Arthur. My heart sank within me, for I felt that there was some fearful ordeal before us. I could do nothing, however, so I plucked up, with what heart I could, and said that we had better hasten, as the afternoon was passing. We found the child awake. It had had a sleep and taken some food. And altogether was going on well. Dr. Vincent took the bandage from its throat and showed us the punctures. There was no mistaking the similarity to those which had been on Lucy's throat. I love I don't really, that's sarcasm, but I was just saying the dehumanization of children just casually is kind of interesting to me for something written in 1897. I swear these people did not like children. Like as a culture. There was no mistaking the similarity to those which had been on Lucy's throat. They were smaller, and the edges looked fresher. That was all. We asked Vincent to what he attributed them, and he replied that it must have been a bite of some animal, perhaps a rat. But for his own part, he was inclined to think it was one of the bats, which are so numerous on the northern heights of London. Relatable, though in my defence is because of arsehole kids when I was in school, and not kids of today. Yeah. I don't know. I sometimes feel awkward around kids, but that's because I always was awkward around kids when I was a kid. I'm just awkward in general. And I realise I'm awkward around adults too. What? I'll do a toff accent maybe. I'm imagining like a guy with a moustache. Out of so many harmless ones, he said, there may be some wild specimen from the south of a more malignant species. Some sailor may have brought one home, and it managed to escape. Or even from the zoological gardens. A young one may have got loose, or one be bred there from a vampire. Bad. These things do occur, you know. Only 10 days ago a wolf got out, and was, I believe, traced up in this direction. For a week after, the children were playing nothing but Red Riding Hood on the heath, and in every alley in the place until this bloofer lady scare came along. Since then it has been quite a gala time with them. Even this poor little mite, when he woke up today, asked the nurse if he might go away. When she asked him why he wanted to go, he said he wanted to play with the bloofer lady. I hope, said Van Helsing, that when you are sending the child home, you will caution its parents to keep strict watch over it. These fancies to stray are most dangerous, and if the child were to remain out another night, it would probably be fatal. But in any case, I suppose you will not let it away for some days? Certainly not. Not for a week at least. Longer if the wound is not healed. Our visit to the hospital took more time than we had reckoned on, and the sun had dipped before we came out. When Van Helsing saw how dark it was, he said, There is not hurry. It is more late than I thought. Come, let us seek somewhere that we may eat, and then we shall go on our way. We dined at Jack Straw's castle, along with a little crowd of bicyclists and others who were genially noisy. About 10 o'clock we started from the inn. It was then very dark, and the scattered lamps made the darkness greater when we were once outside their individual radius. The professor had evidently noted the road we were to go, for he went on unhesitatingly, but as for me, I was in quite a mix-up as to locality. As we went further, we met fewer and fewer people, till at last we were somewhat surprised when we met even the patrol of horse police going their usual suburban round. At last we reached the wall of the churchyard, which we climbed over. With some little difficulty, for it was very dark, and the whole place seemed so strange to us, we found the Westenra tomb. The professor took the key, opened the creaky door, and standing back, politely, but quite unconsciously, motioned me to precede him. There was a delicious irony in the offer, in the courtliness of giving preference on such a ghastly occasion. My companion followed me quickly, and cautiously drew the door to, after carefully ascertaining that the lock was a falling, and not a spring one. I wonder what the significance of a falling lock versus a spring one is. In the latter case, we should have been in a bad plight. Then he fumbled in his bag, and taking out a matchbox and a piece of candle, proceeded to make a light. The tomb in the daytime, and when wreathed with fresh flowers, had looked grim and gruesome enough. But now, some days afterwards, when the flowers hung lank and dead, their whites turning to rust and their greens to browns, when the spider and the beetle had resumed their accustomed dominance, when the time-discoloured stone and dust-encrusted mortar and rusty, dank iron and tarnished brass and clouded silver plating gave back the feeble glimmer of a candle, the effect was more miserable and sordid than could have been imagined. It conveyed irresistibly the idea that life, animal life, was not the only thing which could pass away. Thank you, Zero Hunter. That's such a nice compliment, such a nice thing to say. It's funny when I sometimes watch back the VODs, I think I'm doing a very pronounced accent for characters, but it turns out it's not very distinguishable. Or rather, not as distinguishable as it is in my head. It's very strange. Also, I'm trying not to mutter. Van Helsing went about his work systematically, holding his candle so that he could read the coffin plates, and so holding it that the sperm dropped in white patches which congealed as they touched the metal. He made assurance of Lucy's coffin. The sperm? It must be a... Does that mean like the wax droppings? I didn't know there was another meaning for that word. That's so random. Also, we had a hitherto, which was nice earlier. Another search in his bag, and he took out a turn screw. A turn screw. An old-fashioned word for a screwdriver. That's such a vibe, turn screw. What are you going to do? I asked. To open the coffin. You shall yet be convinced. Straight away he began taking out the screws, and finally lifted off the lid, showing the casing of lead beneath. Lead coffin. Interesting. The sight was almost too much for me. It seemed to be as much an affront to the dead as it would have been to have stripped off her clothing in her sleep whilst living. I actually took hold of his hand to stop him. He only said, "You shall see," and again, fumbling in his bag, took out a tiny fret saw. Striking the turn screw through the lead with a swift downward stab, which made me wince, he made a small hole, which was, however, big enough to admit the point of the saw. I had expected a rush of gas from the weak-cold corpse. We doctors, who have had to study our dangers, have to become accustomed to such things, and I drew back towards the door. But the Professor never stopped. The Professor never stopped for a moment. He sawed down a couple of feet along one side of the lead coffin, and then across and down the other side. Taking the edge of the loose flange, he bent it back towards the foot of the coffin, and holding up the candle into the aperture, motioned me to look. I drew near and looked. The coffin was empty. It was certainly a surprise to me, and gave me a considerable shock, but Van Helsing was unmoved. He was now more sure than ever of his ground, and so emboldened to proceed in his task. "Are you satisfied now, friend John?" he asked. I felt all the dogged argumentativeness of my nature awake within me as I answered him. "I am satisfied that Lucy's body is not in that coffin, but that only proves one thing." "And what is that, friend John?" "That it is not there." "That is good logic," he said, "so far as it goes. But how can you account for it not being there?" "Perhaps a body snatcher," I suggested. "Some of the undertaker's people may have stolen it." I felt that I was speaking folly, and yet it was the only real cause which I could suggest. The Professor sighed. "Ah, well," he said, "we must have more proof. Come with me." He put on the coffin lid again, gathered up all his things and placed them in the bag, blew out the light, and placed the candle also in the bag. We opened the door and went out. Behind us he closed the door and locked it. Locked. He handed me the key, saying, "Will you keep it? You had better be assured." I laughed. It was not a very cheerful laugh, I am bound to say, as I motioned him to keep it. "A key is nothing," I said. "There are many duplicates, and anyhow it is not difficult to pick a lock of this kind." He said nothing, but put the key in his pocket. Then he told me to watch at one side of the churchyard, whilst he would watch at the other. I took up my place behind a yew tree, and I saw his dark figure move until the intervening headstones and trees hid it from my sight. It was a lonely vigil. Just after I had taken my place, I heard a distant clock strike 12. And in time came 1 and 2. I was chilled and unnerved and angry with the professor for taking me on such an errand, and with myself for coming. I was too cold and too sleepy to be keenly observant, and not sleepy enough to betray my trust, so altogether I had a dreary, miserable time. Suddenly, as I turned round, I thought I saw something like a white streak moving between 2 dark yew trees at the side of the churchyard farthest from the tomb. Hi, Lady Dragon Chef, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. It must be morning there. Hope you're having a nice day. At the same time, a dark mass moved from the professor's side of the ground and hurriedly went towards it. Then I too moved, but I had to go round headstones and railed off tombs, and I stumbled over graves. It's lunchtime? Wonderful. I'll get something to eat after this. The sky was overcast, and somewhere far off an early cock crew. A little ways off, beyond a line of... Thank you. A little ways off, beyond a line of scattered juniper trees, which marked the pathway to the church, a dim white figure flitted in the direction of the tomb. The tomb itself was hidden by trees, and I could not see where the figure had disappeared. I heard the rustle of actual movement, where I had first seen the white figure, and coming over, found the professor, holding in his arms a tiny child. When he saw me, he held it out to me and said, "Are you satisfied now?" "No," I said, in a way that I felt was aggressive. "Do you not see the child?" "Yes, it is a child, but who brought it here? And is it wounded?" "We shall see," said the professor, and with one impulse we took our way out of the churchyard, he carrying the sleeping child. When we had got some little distance away, we went into a clump of trees and struck a match and looked at the child's throat. It was without a scratch or scar of any kind. "Was I right?" I asked triumphantly. "We were just in time," said the professor thankfully. We had now to decide what we were to do with the child, and so consulted about it. If we were to take it to a police station, we should have to give some account of our movements during the night. What were you doing out there? At least we should have had to make some statement as to how we had come to find the child. So, finally, we decided that we would take it to the heath, and when we heard a policeman coming, would leave it where he could not fail to find it. We would then seek our way home as quickly as we could. All fell out well. At the edge of Hampstead Heath, we heard a policeman's heavy tramp, and laying the child on the pathway, we waited and watched until he saw it, as he flashed his lantern to and fro. We heard his exclamation of astonishment, and then we went away silently. By good chance, we got a cab near the Spaniards and drove to town. I don't know what the Spaniards means. Must be something very specific to Hampstead at that point in history. I cannot sleep, so I make this entry. But I must try to get a few hours' sleep, as Van Helsing is to call for me at noon. He insists that I go with him on another expedition. 27th of September, the next day. It was 2 o'clock before we found a suitable opportunity for our attempt. The funeral held at noon was all completed, and the last stragglers of the mourners had taken themselves lazily away, when, looking carefully from behind a clump of alder trees, we saw the sexton lock the gate after him. We knew that we were safe till morning, did we desire it, but the professor told me that we should not want more than an hour at most. Again I felt that horrid sense of the reality of things in which any effort of imagination seemed out of place, and I realized distinctly the perils of the law which we were incurring in our unhallowed work. Besides, I felt it was all so useless. Outrageous as it was to open a leaden coffin to see if a woman dead nearly a week were really dead, it now seemed the height of folly to open the tomb again, when we knew, from the evidence of our own eyesight, that the coffin was empty. I shrugged my shoulders, however, and rested silent, for Van Helsing had a way of going on his own road, no matter who remonstrated. He took the key, opened the vault, and again courteously motioned me to precede. The place was not so gruesome as last night, but, oh, how unutterably mean-looking when the sunshine streamed in. Van Helsing walked over to Lucy's coffin, and I followed. He bent over and again forced back the leaden flange, and a shock of surprise and dismay shot through me. There lay Lucy, seemingly just as we had seen her the night before her funeral. She was, if possible, more radiantly beautiful than ever, and I could not believe that she was dead. The lips were red, nay, redder than before, and on the cheeks was a delicate bloom. "Is this a juggle?" I said to him. "Are you convinced now?" said the professor in response, and as he spoke, he put over his hand, and in a way that made me shudder, pulled back the dead lips and showed the white teeth. "See," he went on, "they are even sharper than before, with this and this," and he touched one of the canine teeth, and that below it. "The little children can be bitten. Are you of belief now, friend John?" Once more argumentative hostility woke within me. I could not accept such an overwhelming idea as he suggested. So with an attempt to argue of which I was even at the most ashamed, I said, "She may have been placed here since last night." "Indeed? That is so? And by whom?" I do not know. Someone has done it. And yet she has been dead 1 week. Most peoples in that time would not look so. I had no answer for this, so was silent. Van Helsing did not seem to notice my silence. At any rate, he showed neither chagrin nor triumph. He was looking intently at the face of the dead woman, raising the eyelids and looking at the eyes, and once more opening the lips and examining the teeth. Then he turned to me and said, "Here there is one thing which is different from all recorded. Here is some dual life that is not as the common. She was bitten by the vampire when she was in a trance, sleepwalking. Oh, you start. You do not know that, friend John, but you shall know it later. And in trance could he best come to take more blood? In trance she dies, and in trance she is undead too. So it is that she differ from all other. Usually when the undead sleep at home." As he spoke, he made a comprehensive sweep of his arm to designate what to a vampire was home. "Their face show what they are, but this so sweet that was when she not undead, she go back to the nothings of the common dead. There is no malign there, see, and so it make hard that I must kill her in her sleep." This turned my blood cold, and it began to dawn upon me that I was accepting Van Helsing's theories. But if she were really dead, what was there of terror in the idea of killing her? He looked up at me, and evidently saw the change in my face, for he said almost joyously, "Ah, you believe now?" I answered, "Do not press me too hard all at once. I am willing to accept. How will you do this bloody work?" "I shall cut off her head and fill her mouth with garlic, and I shall drive a stake through her body." It made me shudder to think of so mutilating the body of the woman whom I had loved, and yet the feeling was not so strong as I had expected. I was, in fact, beginning to shudder at the presence of this being, this undead, as Van Helsing called it, and to loathe it. Is it possible that love is all subjective, or all objective? I waited a considerable time for Van Helsing to begin, but he stood as if wrapped in thought. Presently he closed the catch of his bag with a snap and said, "I have been thinking, and have made up my mind as to what is best. If I did simply follow my inclining, I would do now, at this moment, what is to be done. But there are other things to follow, and things that are 1,000 times more difficult, in that them we do not know. This is simple. She have yet no life taken, though that is of time, and to act now would be to take danger from her forever. But then we may have to want Arthur, and how shall we tell him of this? If you, who saw the wounds on Lucy's throat, and saw the wounds so similar on the child's at the hospital, if you, who saw the coffin empty last night and full today, with a woman who have not changed only to be more rose and more beautiful in a whole week after she die, if you know of this, and know of that white figure last night that brought the child to the churchyard, and yet of your own senses you did not believe, how then can I expect Arthur, who know none of these things, to believe? He doubted me when I took him from her kiss when she was dying. I know he has forgiven me, because in some mistaken idea I have done things that prevent him say goodbye as he ought, and he may think that in some more mistaken idea that this woman was buried alive, and that in most mistake of all we have killed her. He will then argue back that it is we, mistaken ones, that have killed her by our ideas, and so he will be much unhappy always. Yet he can never be sure, and that is worst of all. And he will sometimes think that she he loved was buried alive, and that will paint his dreams with horrors of what she must have suffered. And again, he will think that we may be right, and that his sore beloved was, after all, an undead. No. Van Helsing's very hard to follow sometimes. I told him once, and since then I learn much. Now, since I know it is all true, 100,000 times more do I know that he must pass through the bitter waters to reach the sweet. He, poor fellow, must have 1 hour that will make the very face of heaven grow black to him. Then we can act for good all round and send him peace. My mind is made up. Let us go. You return home for tonight to your asylum and see that all be well. As for me, I shall spend the night here, in this churchyard, in my own way. Tomorrow night you will come to me to the Berkeley Hotel at 10 of the clock. I shall send for Arthur to come, and also that so fine young man of America that gave his blood. Later we shall all have work to do. I come with you so far as Piccadilly, and there dine, for I must be back here before the sun set. So we locked the tomb and came away, and got over the wall of the churchyard, which was not much of a task, and drove back to Piccadilly. Doing 116. Note left by Van Helsing in his portmanteau. Berkeley Hotel, directed to John Seward, MD. Not delivered. Not delivered. Pixie, hello. Hope you're having a nice morning. I was lurking the other day in your stream. Like on and off. But I think I might have to watch the VOD. I've been enjoying your costumes, Pixie. I changed my vote on the costume, because now that you've got all the costumes in the list, I was able to pick the one I like the best. I'm not going to say which one it was, of course, but you might be able to see. I don't know. I don't know how Google Forms work. But yeah, I very much enjoyed all the costumes. There is a costume in the lead. I have a suspicion which one it is, but maybe I'm wrong. So you're doing this, is it this Thursday that you're doing your IRL stream? And what time is that, if so? I'll do a translation for, for my time. Okay, so Van Helsing left a note. Thursday's Halloween and the street party. It's like 7 p.m. EST. I wouldn't say 7 p.m. is late, but... Okay, so it's like 9 a.m. Friday, my time. I will have to have an early night Thursday. Which is, it's lucky that it's not next week, because next week is Ari's marble stream. So, okay, so Thursday I'll have an early night. Got to try and get my sleep schedule back on track. No, you, Pixie. I want to see the street party. That's why. Also, I'm hoping for snow. No offense, but I am hoping for snow so you can show me. Okay. I've been drinking lemon tea lately because I was reading that cow's milk is actually not great for like guys and people who have like people who have prostates. Like, apparently cow's milk is not good. So I was like, oh, okay. Did not realize that. So I've been vastly cutting back on milk consumption. We had frost last week, so who knows? Interesting. Okay, so Van Helsing's note, 27th of September. Friend John, I write this in case anything should happen. I go alone to watch in the churchyard. It pleases me that the undead, Miss Lucy, shall not leave tonight, that so on the morrow night she may be more eager. Therefore I shall fix some things she like not, a garlic and a crucifix, and so seal up the door of the tomb. For some reason, when he said lead coffin, I was like, how does the vampire get through lead? And I'm just like, oh wait, that's Superman. Getting vampires and Superman confused. She is young as undead, and will heed. Moreover, these are only to prevent her coming out. They may not prevail on her wanting to get in, for then the undead is desperate, and must find the line of least resistance, whatsoever it may be. I shall be at hand all night, from sunset till after sunrise, and if there be aught that may be learned, I shall learn it. For Miss Lucy, or from her, I have no fear, but that other, to whom is there that she is undead, he have not the power to seek her tomb and find shelter. He is cunning, as I know from Mr. Jonathan, and from the way that all along he have fooled us when he played with us for Miss Lucy's life, and we lost. And in many ways the undead are strong. He have always the strength in his hand of 20 men. Even we 4 who gave our strength to Miss Lucy, it also is all to him. Besides, he can summon his wolf, and I know not what. Some noisy cars around here. So if it be that he came thither, if he came thither on this night, he shall find me. But none other shall, until it be too late. But it may be that he will not attempt the place. there is no reason why he should. His hunting ground is more full of game than the churchyard where the undead woman sleeps, and the one old man watch. Therefore, I write this in case. Take the papers that are within this, the diaries of Harker and the rest, and read them. And then find this great undead, and cut off his head, and burn his heart, or drive a stake through it, so that the world may rest from him. If it be so, farewell. Van Helsing. Remember that the note was not delivered, so that's a good sign. Let me just do a quick check. Okay, so another half an hour should be okay. I'm actually feeling a bit odd. I'm wondering if this disrupted sleep is like a means I'm actually coming down with something. I really hope not, because I need to go shopping tomorrow. Dr. Seward's Diary, 28th of September. It is wonderful what a good night's sleep will do for one. Oh, shut up, Seward. Glad someone's getting a good night's sleep. Yesterday I was almost willing to accept Van Helsing's monstrous ideas, but now they seem to start out lurid before me, as outrages on common sense. I have doubt that he believes it at all. I wonder if his mind can have become in any way unhinged. Surely there must be some rational explanation of all these mysterious things. Is it possible that the professor can have done it himself? He is so abnormally clever that if he went off his head, he would carry out his intent with regard to some fixed idea in a wonderful way. I am loath, that is wonderful in, like, not necessarily good, but just outrageous. I am loath to think it, and indeed it would be almost as great a marvel as the other to find that Van Helsing was mad. But anyhow, I shall watch him carefully. I may get some light on the mystery. 29th of September. Last night, at a little before 10 o'clock, Arthur and Quincy came into Van Helsing's room. He told us all what he wanted us to do, but especially addressing himself to Arthur, as if all our wills were centred in his. He began by saying that he hoped we would all come with him too. For, he said, there is a grave duty to be done there. You were doubtless surprised at my letter? This query was directly addressed to Lord Godalming, a.k.a. Arthur. It was. It rather upset me for a bit. There's been so much trouble around my house of late that I could do without any more. I have been curious, too, as to what you mean. Quincy and I talked it over, but the more we talked, the more puzzled we got, till now I can say for myself that I'm about up a tree as to any meaning about anything. Me too, said Quincy Morris laconically. Oh, said the professor. Then you are nearer the beginning, both of you, than friend John here, who has to go a long way back before he can even get so far as to begin. It was evident that he recognized my return to my old doubting frame of mind without my saying a word. Then, turning to the other two, he said with intense gravity, "I want your permission to do what I think good this night. It is, I know, much to ask, and when you know what it is I propose to do, you will know, and only then how much. Therefore, may I ask that you promise me in the dark, so that afterwards, though you may be angry with me for a time, I must not disguise from myself the possibility that such may be. You shall not blame yourselves for anything." "That's frank, anyhow," broke in Quincy. "I'll answer for the professor. I don't quite see his drift, but I swear he's honest. That's good enough for me." "I thank you, sir," said Van Helsing proudly. "I have done myself the honor of counting you one trusting friend, and such endorsement is dear to me." He held out a hand, which Quincy took. Then Arthur spoke out. "Dr. Van Helsing, I don't quite like to buy a pig in a poke, as they say in Scotland, and if it be anything in which my honour as a gentleman or my faith as a Christian is concerned, I cannot make such a promise. If you can assure me that what you intend does not violate either of these two, then I give my consent at once, though for the life of me I cannot understand what you are driving at." "I accept your limitation," said Van Helsing, "and all I ask of you is that if you feel it necessary to condemn any act of mine, you will first consider it well and be satisfied that it does not violate your reservation." "Agreed," said Arthur. "That is only fair. And now that the pourparlers are over, may I ask what it is we are to do?" "I want you to come with me, and to come in secret to the churchyard at Kingstead." Arthur's face fell as he said in an amazed sort of way, "Where poor Lucy is buried?" The professor bowed. Arthur went on. And when there, to enter the tomb." Arthur stood up. "Professor, are you in earnest, or is it some monstrous joke? Pardon me. I see that you are in earnest." He sat down again, but I could see that he sat firmly and proudly, as one who is on his dignity. Then there was silence until he asked again, "And when in the tomb?" "To open the coffin." "This is too much," he said, angrily rising again. "I am willing to be patient in all things that are reasonable, but in this desecration of the grave of one who... ... He fairly choked with indignation. The professor looked pityingly at him. "If I could spare you one pang, my poor friend," he said, "God knows I would, but this night our feet must tread in thorny paths, or later, and forever, the feet you love must walk in paths of flame." Arthur looked up with set white face and said, "Take care, sir, take care." "Would it not be well to hear what I have to say?" said Van Helsing, "and then you will at least know the limit of my purpose. Shall I go on? That's fair enough, broke in Morris. After a pause, Van Helsing went on, evidently with an effort. Miss Lucy is dead. Is it not so? Yes. Then there can be no wrong to her. But if she be not dead... ... Arthur jumped to his feet. Good God, he cried. What do you mean? Has there been any mistake? Has she been buried alive? He groaned in anguish that not even hope could soften. I did not say she was alive, my child. I did not think it. I go no further than to say she might be undead. Undead? Not alive? What do you mean? Is this all a nightmare, or what is it? There are mysteries which men can only guess at, which, age by age, they may solve only in part. Believe me, we are now on the verge of one. But I have not done. May I cut off the head of dead Miss Lucy? Oh, damn, he dropped it. Heavens and earth, no, cried Arthur in a storm of passion. Not for the wide world will I consent to any mutilation of her dead body. Dr. Van Helsing, you try me too far. What have I done to you that you should you should torture me so? What did that poor sweet girl do to you that you should want to cast such dishonour on her grave? Are you mad that you speak of such things, or am I mad to listen to them? Don't dare think more of such a desecration. I shall not give my consent to anything you do. I have a duty to do in protecting her grave from outrage, and by God I shall do it. Van Helsing rose up from where he had all this time been seated, and said gravely and sternly, My Lord Godalming, I too have a duty to do, a duty to others, a duty to you, a duty to the dead, and by God, I shall do it. All I ask you now is that you come with me, that you look and listen, and if when later I make the same request, you do not be more eager for its fulfillment even than I am, then I shall do my duty, whatever it may seem to me. And then, to follow your lordship's wishes, I shall hold myself at your disposal, to render an account to you, when and where you will. His voice broke a little, and he went on with a voice full of pity. But I beseech you, do not go forth in anger with me. In a long life of acts which were often not pleasant to do, and which sometimes did wring my heart, I have never had so heavy a task as now. Believe me that if the time comes for you to change your mind towards me, one look from you would wipe away all this so sad hour, for I would do what a man can to save you from sorrow. Just think, for why should I give myself so much labour and so much of sorrow? I have come here from my own land to do what I can of good. At the first to please my friend John, and then to help a sweet young lady, whom I come to love. For her I am ashamed to say so much, but I say it in kindness. I gave what you gave, the blood of my veins. I gave it. I who was not, like you, her lover, but only her physician and her friend. I gave her my nights and days before death, after death, and if my death can do her good, even now, when she is the dead, undead, she shall have it freely. He said this with a very grave, sweet pride, and Arthur was much affected by it. He took the old man's hand and said in a broken voice, "Oh, it is hard to think of it, and I cannot understand, but at least I shall go with you and wait." End of chapter 15. So, I think they're up for an event in chapter 16. Chapter 16 is John Seward's diary continued. So I'm guessing they're all going to go to the graveyard and see what's what. If you recall, Van Helsing left a bunch of things on Lucy's... oh, wait, did he leave them there, or was he going to leave them there? But I think that was his plan, was to leave them there. Anyway, we shall see about that in the next chapter. As for right now, I'm feeling a bit iffy, so I'll have to pick this up tomorrow. Ooh, bump. I am going to look for somebody to raid. If I can't find a person, I have kittens to raid. I fixed the raid command, so when people raid in, the graphics are back. But I was watching Pinapy's stream earlier, and she's got like this thing that pops up, and it's like it also has like a follows art, and it has like a bouncy thing. I'm like, oh, that's a cool effect. I could probably recreate that with Mix It Up, but it would take a bit of work, and I'd have to separate out each different thing. But I think I could do it. I don't think it would be too hard. Maybe. Let's see. We have Maria. Maria is on. Maria has been going for a while. Oh no, 3 hours. We'll see how we go. We also have Melvie. Melvie's on. Melvie's been going for 4 hours. We also have... well, that's it for my follows. Oh, Ivy. Ivy's also on. The problem with Melvie's stream is that I don't speak Spanish, so I have no idea how long she's going for. Alright, so I'm shouting out Pixie again today because Pixie's doing...
glory to you and your house.
I haven't fixed the shout out. I thought I'd fix the shout out, but I saved the wrong thing and it saved the old one again. So it's broken again. Thank you, Teamoid. Have a good night. Yeah, so yes. We're going to go raid Melvie quickly before she raids me again. Oops, sorry, I snorted into the microphone. I apologize for the snort. Please join me for the raid. It'd be very nice if we could raid with a few people into Melvie's stream. And you don't have to stick around if you don't want. Melvie's doing brushing and stuff. I will be going to get some food, and then I'm going to be lurking in Melvie's stream and wait for Ari. That's my plan. I hope everyone has a good night, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I appreciate it. I like reading to people. And yeah, good night. Bye, everyone. Bye.